the Mantids, from what I can see psychically on Mars, aren't original to Mars, although they've been there, so long, we could consider them indigenous. Although what I was shown several times psychically is that they had been through a cataclysm elsewhere with some kind of destroyed planet.
Mm-hmm.
And actually through all of my viewings over time, it seems like that scenario is not always so uncommon, in which beings are fleeing from either war or destruction of environmental changes, or
Mm-hmm.
actually destruction of a planet. So that was my observation, that they had migrated a long time ago. Yeah. And that there are, I don't know if I mentioned this before, I mean, there's different densities of mantid being. They're not all one and the same. So we're talking about one group, one race, one
Mm-hmm.
subgroup of this race on Mars. And so I want to always make that clear, like, this doesn't represent all mantids everywhere. And maybe we've talked about that before, but my immediate impression of them there was that they had a group of what I would call elders that kind of kept them coherently aligned with frequency. So we could consider them as in a unified mind, like not quite a hive mind. I would say a lot more elevated than that in their frequency. So not quite like the Greys per se, but communicating through a coherent frequency. And the elders, the like, we could call them wise sage elders, like we might some indigenous people on this planet, maintain that frequency. So it's moderated to stay in a certain frequency bandwidth, so that everybody could stay coherent in the relationship, I suppose I would say. They wanted peace with us when they didn't want to be at war with us. And to my knowledge, I never observed them having any kind of like war technology or even craft. And again, that's not to say that they had no technology. They were using incredible, like the technology of consciousness. And the elders, did we ever share, let me do a screen share of that drawing I made. Okay, so this is just a drawing I made. It's a pretty big, 3-foot tall drawing, and that's my rendition of them. And
Mm-hmm.
the elders always seemed like they had some kind of diaphanous, like I don't know what to call it, gown, clothing, robe, or something. That's my sort of art. I've taken some artistic liberties there, but you can see that. Yeah.
So they're bipedal. The ones that you're talking about, they're
Yeah,
bipedal. They
so
have
they're tall.
two hands.
They're quite tall, and their hands, that drawing does not really give justice to the hand. The hands look more insectoid than that.
Mm-hmm.
I've had many years of figure drawing humans under my belt as an artist, so they
Okay.
look a little humanoid. But they're bipedal, they're tall, I find them to have a certain kind of elegance. And I know other people will have spoken about the Mars mantids as just like big bugs, and
Right.
I never really saw them that way. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
another point of clarification that, we talk about different densities, different races living other places of the mantids, and even within Mars, there would also be different subgroups. So some area of the planet, just like humans, one area of the planet is like this, another
Mm-hmm.
area of the planet might be like this. And just again acknowledging those differences, I think
Right.
that's important. Yeah, we were unfortunately trained to use them as target practice. We had no, within our programming, we had no, didn't regard them as anything worth anything, which is, I mean, it's kind of hard to say that. And I would say, just looking back at my experiences in the SSP, I mean, we took, in this case on Mars, the paradigm of empire, of colonialism, off world. We took it off world, and we insinuated that on Mars. I mean, it was very much a system that was similar. So nothing I'm too proud of, but that's what I observed. And we co-opted them through mind control to work for us as surgeons, techs, and mechanics at our base. So, and we tested things on them, like explosives and weapons and things that, would never be able to do on Earth. We could do whatever we wanted off world or off planet, right? At least in the iteration of program I was in, back when, a long time ago, that is what was going on. And I feel like the colonies all of this changed hands. There may have been different players doing different things at different times. Again, I'm making distinctions to clarify that other people might have had different experiences. And they lived underground. I mean, most the beings I observed on Mars seemed like us to mostly dwell underground. That was pretty common. That seemed to be the theme. And not, here's the thing, it's not in like a caveman cave or some like gross, like scuzzy, grubby, like some grubby thing, but really elevated. And let me talk about that they had, and I call it the Mantid labyrinth, a really, really high frequency labyrinth underground that I think was more upper dimensional than they were in a way. It was created by other beings, as far as I can tell. And the Mantids found it empty later on and came in and made it their own. They added their own frequency modulations and built it out to suit their needs, so to speak. And this blew my mind when I remembered this. And it's a beautiful memory of being inside that labyrinth or observing it through remote viewing. There's striations of, it's almost, I don't even know what to call it because there's no human frame of reference for this. It's almost like a crystalline structure within the again, lack of a better word, the earthen, the mass of the planet that they had carved out of. There was also this otherworldly, I don't know if it was an otherworld off-world metal or was it crystal? I don't really know what to call it. I'm not sure of the chemical nature of it, but it was amazing. And the most amazing thing was to feel its frequency. Yeah, definitely. It's like nothing I can describe, nothing I ever saw anywhere else in the programs, like nothing I'd ever seen on Mars. It's really remarkable. And it was created, again, I was shown this psychically, by very, very tall, uber, super advanced race a long, long time ago, maybe millions of years ago, that came, and I think they were at different places around our solar system building stuff. They were, I've heard this group, I think, called as ancient builders by someone else, and I would call them ancient engineers, architects, and artists. And it's the frequency that's the signature, really, not so much even the visuals, but the energetic signature remaining from these structures that is really mind-blowing. So I'm really grateful I got a chance to observe that, firsthand. Yeah, I wish I could describe it better. In visions, I was shown that this same group, and we could wonder, where did they even come from? The extremely tall, taller than any other being I've seen anywhere else. Very luminous light beings. I was shown that they had left like an energetic blueprint for Göbekli Tepe, which is in Turkey, really ancient site, right? Not that they built it, but they left like almost like we could say like a data disk or so, in which someone else might be able to unlock the code, and it would, as if not quite build itself, but the energetics were there locked up and became unlocked. I think they were later locked up again because humans started going in a maybe somewhat unfavorable direction. The labyrinth itself is conscious and intelligent as a result of the leftover energy system of the beings that we're talking about. The labyrinth had a frequency fence around it that was alive. It was alive and helped protect them. And we unknowingly, somewhat unwittingly, our commanders probably knew all about that technology, but they wanted us to go on missions to see if we could disarm it or figure it out or discover how it worked, what it was made out of, or, like how to manipulate it. Could we copy it? And so on and so forth, the way that we would have done in the SSP. And again, with the Mantid Mantid elders would have been keeping, just as they were keeping the group regulated within a certain frequency bandwidth, they were also modulating the frequency of what I'm calling a frequency fence, or their protection there, you know. So I say they don't have weapons, they don't have craft, they don't have any of that, but this is way more high tech than a weapon, to be honest.
So how does it function?
I'll tell you about that.
This
I'll tell you
fence.
about
All right.
that right now.
Cool.
Yeah. So we were sent over there on a mission, more than one, you know, to, you know, it always looked like we were being sent to hunt the elders. I call it elder hunting, which is pretty gross. But, you know, in reality, our commanders wanted us to know what this was all about, what this was made out of, and could we figure it out? And would we die in the process? Because you could be killed, you know, messing with this thing. So Dean and I would do, you know, we functioned with a larger team that usually was about 7 of us all together. And I remember doing psychic recon to see what was over there first. I remember the elders standing around a tall table of light. It was like, I don't know what it was. Again, I can't describe the substance it was made of. It was tall, they're standing around it, and there's moving symbols and images, and almost like, I want to say light code on the table, actually quite tall. And I don't know if this was also a leaving of these ancient architects that we're talking about that left the labyrinth as well. Again, the table itself seemed alive, and I don't remember what they were communicating. But anyway, just to explain, kind of, we would do remote viewing first before we go over there. In any case, one time we went over to check out the tech of the frequency fence, and brought some kind of POW from base as like a decoy or a dummy. It blew up when it came in contact with that fence, with that energy system. And what we learned time after time was that you had to be of a certain frequency bandwidth to get beyond the fence for it to interact properly with you, which makes sense to me now. And of course, it would have killed every one of us had we come into contact with it. Yeah, so really mind-blowing technology. So again, we can't say that the Mantids had no tech, at least this group. I don't know about other groups. This is the only one I remember from Mars. But and I think that, like I said, I think the commanders knew what we were getting involved in, and they set us up, just like they set us up with that timeline war. They set us up, you know, with the future super soldiers I was talking about in our last episode. They set us up with this and other things. It was all a little bit devious. We were like the last to know what our true mission was about at any point in time, right? So there was always that. Yeah. And then I can go into something that is intense about how we co-opted them. You know, I said we had tested a lot of things on them, and mentioned we had mind controlled them to get them to work for us. There was I remember one, you know, night we went over there, and we were in, it was like an air raid, and we bombed them and we gassed them, and to introduce a lot of chaos into their consciousness field, and in so much terror and pain. I mean, when this memory came through, it was horrifying, because I was, as an empath, I'm not just getting my own memories back, but I was taken into like a firsthand experience, almost karmically, to go through what they went through. And it was horrible, like all this screaming and high pitch and total chaos within their consciousness field. And that was our intention, was to introduce a moment of terror and trauma and pain to the whole group, in which case we hoped we would then be able to control them. And it's a lot like trauma-based mind control on Earth. It's not so different from that, in which you're introducing something shocking in order to manipulate the mind. It's very, very much similar. Yeah, in their panic, the field is broken. The field is broken. You can do anything you want in that case. So not my most proud moments here, but I also know that we were all manipulated beings. We were all controlled ourselves, like, you know, and these are memories that, you know, have been harder for me to access, the ones in which I'm being the perpetrator. I think for everybody, those are the most difficult memories. And in a way, yeah, we're meant to feel like we're responsible for every bad deed we were forced to commit out there. 100%. And it's supposed to, one of the devious, means that we're meant to feel responsible, and so we won't remember. It's almost like a keeps the mind wiped of memory. Like, oh, I don't want to remember that. It keeps a gateway up in the mind. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like a safeguard.
Yeah. Like you're not going to go back because it's too fucked up, But I'm glad that came through, because for the longest time, frankly, I didn't understand. So we have this like group of mantids over here, and then we have all these mantids at base. Like, how did this happen? Like, for a couple of years, I was like stumped, and then eventually this opened up, and it opened up in such a way it was like raining memory. It wouldn't stop. I have very detailed records of that, and they're a little painful to look at. And
So
in a way,
did you capture them eventually, or did you capture them right
yeah, some
after
of
the
them.
bombing?
We wanted to capture them. We wanted to kill them. I mean, it was almost like we were out to cause pain, but that's at this time on Mars, at least our commanders seem, the base, as we said before, was run by psychopaths. So, yeah, we wanted to just fuck them up. Excuse my language. Yeah.
Okay.
And get their technology and just learn what we could, use them as target practice, whatever. They were viewed as expendable, very much so. And it seems, when I look at it now, it seems like total poetic justice that I told you guys about that night we were ambushed. There was an air raid. The Mantids came in, bombarded us from the air with explosives and everything, and the tables were turned. We did not expect it at all. They demolished the base with it using our own craft, as a mutiny.
Oh,
so it seems really fitting. Yeah.
With their own craft. I thought they had their own craft, or the group that they connected with.
They had a group that they connected with. Yeah. And they used our own craft, because remember, some of them are already at the base working on our craft. They're already maintaining some of our tech, right? So easy enough in a way, but what was the glitch in the system? There was a glitch in their mind control system that allowed all this to take place. So yeah, I think it's really interesting and complex. I'm like, I never would have thought about any of this, but it explained a lot once these memories unfolded. Like, oh, totally makes sense. I get it now. So that was the night I lost my leg, and don't have any memory after that. I was just on the ground and blown up, basically. Yeah. So anyway, I'm kind of, in a way, sort of cheering for them. It's kind of twisted either way. Yeah. But in the end, I would say we were really no match for their 4D mind stream and their consciousness against us in 3D, with all of our violence, aggression, and power over kind of ideology, right? We weren't any match for the Mantids. And in fact, the elders could leave their bodies. Like, if we attack them, the elders, you might be able to kill the body, get the body. There's no consciousness left in it. You maybe could do something with that, sure. But they had a way of just escaping, which I think is really pretty cool. Yeah, and there's also kind of poetic justice inside of that, I feel. Yeah.
Do you remember what was afterwards? I mean, in the future of that event, that you kind of rebuilt the base and everything, went back as normal, or?
Yeah, it was rebuilt. It was rebuilt. Yeah.
So they didn't destroy everybody completely.
No, they didn't decimate. They didn't kill everybody, but it was enough. It was doing the same thing. Like, we didn't set out to kill everybody that night. We gassed them, right, and bombed them. But it was like, again, it was just like retribution or so. We just want to bomb them back and like it. Nice. The way we do on Earth. It is not different than what happens on Earth.
Right.
Tit for tat. An eye for an eye. So pretty degraded mind state, in my opinion.
Did you ever communicate with them on the base, like directly?
I just remember them working on me surgically. And I don't have clear recall of like conversations that I had with them. I think it was meant that we wouldn't interact and get too cozy with them. Like, they're separate, they're subhuman, they're slaves, whatever. Like, don't, they're dirt. Just stay away from them. And that's my impression, just because I don't have clearer memory than that. And just going by the like the vibe at the base in general is, I feel kind of degraded. So yeah, but overall, I mean, the Mantids, this group were just like highly, I would say highly spiritual and evolved, in a way, very inquisitive, kind of curious in general.
Did you ever physically go beyond that fence eventually?
I have memories of being inside of it, and I don't know if they're from what Dean and I remote viewed or if they were
Okay.
we were physically farther in. I think both. It feels
Hmm.
very much like both, because there's memories that feel a little different, like more of a visioning, like remote viewing would be, or psychic recon would be, and then things that feel, you can tell when something is more literally embodied in the memory. So I feel like there's both, but those are not exceptionally clear. Yeah, I do want
So if
those
you
memories back. I want those memories back because it was, to me, there's something beautiful and elevated in frequency that I wouldn't mind swimming a little more fully in. Yeah.
okay.
I feel it when I look right now. I can feel this energy spread over the solar system that is so elevated, and like these places want to wake up, and spread their technology, their frequency, their energy throughout the solar system. Yeah. And in a way, that's, we could say that is that part of the paradigm with sacred sites becoming
Hmm.
more active in the energies that they contain right here on Earth, around the globe, as we move through quite a chaotic time on our planet right now. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
These guys felt really, really old. Like their energy was really, really old. Not as old as the guys, the beings that I feel, created the energetic structure of the whole thing that they were living in, but really old. Like there was some wisdom amongst this group that I very much respect. Um, there's more to the story about, we can go back into Dean and what happened there. Yeah, I mean, we went into the twinning in the last episode at pretty good length and distance, I feel there. And we mentioned our main function was doing psychic recon together and kind of having each other's back in missions. Like that's so important to know that somebody's got your back or got you covered if you're being fired at or otherwise, or somebody's just basically looking out for you. Is a pretty nice feeling. And I didn't want to go into this part because the whole twinning thing is a lot to hold for me, and I think the audience too, in one go. But what I said, I'm bringing this forward again. I feel like that at the time that base was run by psychopaths, and ultimately, the programming played out. They turned on Dean's kill command alter, whose name was Neil, and he killed me at point blank range, and
Oh
that's
wow.
pretty shocking.
Was it part of the programming training process, or did he kill you because you did something, or?
He was framed for my murder on Mars and incarcerated.
Oh,
No, it was all part of their plan. If we go back, remember what I read from, Cisco Wheeler's book, and how that all plays out within the Illuminati system, is that one twin will inevitably be forced to kill the other. That's how it often works. I don't know how it's always taken to that extreme within the programs, but that was my experience. And that's the most painful thing you can imagine. The one thing that you love, the one thing that you care about, is going to be taken from you in such a brutal way. Brutal for him because he's got to go through life. If he remembers that, and I know he has, that's why he's come to me energetically, like screaming like an animal in pain, and like, what have I done? What
how
have I
old were
done?
you guys?
Oh, we were in our 20s at that point. Yeah.
Do you think there
And
is
so,
any other reason for that? I mean,
no.
it's way into your service time. Why would they?
Mhm.
And you said that he was framed for your murder. Like
He was
they
framed for
made
my murder.
you weren't revived after that, were you?
No, no, they would have had to use another clone.
But everybody knew that, right? That there are clones. You can use a clone, so it's not a murder technically. Why would he be prosecuted for it then?
Yeah, well, go talk to the commanders, man. I think your questions are bringing us into the fact that, what I've said several times within these episodes is the psychology of the people running the base is what we're
Okay.
actually looking at. Why would they do that? It's carrying out the end of the twinning program to a T, to the letter within the system as it's been written. And to
So after,
destroy both, ultimately to destroy both individuals.
I see. So after this, did you continue serving at the
I
same
did,
place?
and I don't exactly know what happened. I don't know that I ever saw him again. Like I said, he
Okay.
was incarcerated for a long time on Mars, and he may have also come to the end of his service in prison.
Do you think there might have been another reason, like maybe you guys got, too out of hand, out of their control,
No,
and they decided to implement this so they can break both of you and get rid of
no, we
you, I
were already
guess.
very broken at that point.
Okay.
So he was forced to harm me sexually over and over and over on the base. I mean, there was always, I have not talked about the depths of depravity that happened on Mars with him at the due to this psychology of the programmers, the controllers, the people who are running the base. And it was
Hmm.
still part of the system to keep
So the
us in
whole,
a certain harmonic frequency wed to each other through pleasure and pain.
I
Yeah.
mean, they had this mind control trauma thing going on throughout the whole 20 and back.
For the duration of Dean and I, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm. Yeah, so interesting when I first got my memories back, I started getting memories back about Mars. It seems so, I have to say I was a bit naive because it seems so placid and it seems so like, oh, all the depravity that happened on Earth isn't happening here because I didn't have all those memories yet. In the early part of my recall, I didn't know how bad it got on Mars. And so when all the twinning stuff came in, I was like, oh, well, shit, it's just exactly the same. It's a little worse. So they just took it to more sophisticated levels in
Wow.
a way. They were operating us for so long together that they can get a little more twisted with each passing year, with each passing event, with how they were operating us together. Yeah, I mean, I see it from their standpoint, it's brilliant to keep the mind really controlled and to keep us confused about what we were responsible for, what was my responsibility. Because remember, but back in the last episode, the twins learned to take responsibility for each other's pain. They're also taking responsibility for everything they're made to do that's deviant. When we kill other beings, we will forever blame ourselves, even though it
Right.
was a program. They activated the altar that is programmed to kill. You see what I mean? So it keeps all the programming in place long after let's say the victim or survivor has gone back to Earth and the program's over. Yeah, and it's a terrible legacy to it's the most inhumane kind of program because it will make dysfunctional one's ability to bond intimately with other humans as the child becomes an adult and we were made to bond and they're destroying that at the very root and base, right at the seed. That's hard to forgive that, like living with that kind of legacy.
Yeah. You seem to
Yeah.
find the most rogue programs on your path.
Perhaps so. I've learned so much and become who I am through this and had to do a lot of relational healing that will be ongoing for the rest of my life, really. And the important part too is that I want to leave people as well with this, that, the twins unlock each other through their own healing. And that Dean and I are connected psychically, even if we never meet. I know he's working on his memories in pieces and parts. We unlock each other through that, even if we're not in
Right.
contact in a literal way about it back and forth and linear. We're helping to heal each other and release all of that bondage now, which I think is really empowering. I mean, I think there's something really beautiful to that. And Dean and I, I harbor nothing ill toward him. I mean, look at the program. Of course it was going to turn out that way, right? Like I don't have any grudge against what went down there, you know.
Yeah, it just seems impractical, but I guess if they were psychopath, that was their practice. I mean, that's
Well,
what they
I
wanted to
think,
do.
I can say favorably and agree with you there that you're like, what is even practical about this? You're abusing the equipment so it can't function.
Right.
Like, but it was kind of part of the design. I don't know what kind of mind control they were also under and what the larger scope of the whole system was. Again, need to know. I wasn't in the need to know. But what I was going to say more favorably is I think that era ended and new people were brought in with new objectives that didn't stay aligned with that level of depravity. Yeah, I don't think that lasted forever. It just was the iteration that I seem to be in there. So
this actually opens a whole new perspective on the programs, because you have several accounts, several, I guess, models or modes of functioning there. There is this military mode that, you know, Randy Kramer was experiencing for 20 years. It was very practical, very clear. I mean, as much as it could be. They were still, you know, fighting and killing the natives, but it was a more or less healthily cohesive, you know, group of people, a lot of people, thousands of people probably, and they had commanders, they could communicate, they had human interaction. And then you have something like the German colonies, what Penny's talking about, that is, you know, semi-psychopath, very Nazi type, but also within itself, it was also more or less, you know, cohesive in the sense that if you protect your group, if you're loyal to your group, then you get rewarded, you get, you know, equal rights, and you're not abused. And what you're talking about is a completely different animal. And I remember Penny saying that there were a lot of different American groups all over Mars that had totally different agenda. They did not interact with each other. And when her group would come across them, they were told to stay away, like, you know, just let them do.
Interesting. Okay, yeah.
Just let them do what they're doing.
That kind of adds up to what, I think, you know, where that adds up to what I experienced as well. And I think I have not listened to Randy's full testimony, but I think, was he taken out later in the 90s?
He was sent there in 87 and you were in 82. But what Penny also said is that Mars is a boot camp for every super soldier program. So what she said is no, and that bears out in other people's testimonies. Like, there is a lot of super soldiers that don't talk about space at all. They don't have any memories of space, but they have a connection to Mars, and they say, I might have been on Mars, I might have done training on Mars.
I could understand that.
Right. And it's so interesting because most of their memories are on Earth, and they don't have any like 20 and back stuff. They're just, you know, super soldier killing machines, but they're all pointing to Mars, saying, you know, there's something on Mars. I cannot explain this, but there is a connection there. So it seems like what Penny's saying, that Mars was really a boot camp for super soldier training for many groups, probably many experimental projects that were maybe very short. Who knows?
Bingo. Yes, you nailed it, Alexander. So I would say that was true. Remember what I said about, you know, we were testing explosives on the Mantids, etc. We were always, you know, I seem to be in this iteration of the program where everything was like, hey, let's put this and this together and see what we can fuck up. Like, it was just it was very rogue. You used the word rogue before, and I think that's really apt of what was even going on. They were just seeing, like mad scientists, what would happen if they did X, Y, and Z. And that seemed to be the case in other areas that I was in beyond Mars. Like, what will happen, like Montauk, you know, hey, how far can we push this before, you know, the victim is dead, before the participant is dead, or what madness can we inflict upon this person, which is, I mean, yeah, it's crazy. But I think even between 82 and 87, for example, with Randy, you know, what you're saying, a lot would have changed in just a little bit of amount of time. And there was so much, there seemed to be a lot of turnover. So people were coming and going, and you don't know what's what, and you're not being told anything. That was my experience anyway. So a lot of inconsistency there. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's interesting about like the Penny's flavor and Randy's flavor and other people and what they experienced there. It'd be interesting to have like just a Mars roundtable, you know, like everybody gets together and talk about Mars.
And that's part of part of the problem with, putting it all together, the whole picture. Like, you want to have a picture and you listen to different people and you end up with like 5 or 7 or 10 different stories that are completely different. They just have these keywords like Mars, 20 and back, the natives.
Yeah, and I think it lends discredibility to everything, and I think that's also intentional. I mean, was it kept sort of in flux and moving around and all these different stories and moving parts so that people would come back, like myself, talk about it and look like wingnets because it doesn't add up to anybody else's experience. There's that piece of it, and also I noticed that people remember. I work with clients who are going through stuff and doing their recall, and people remember different keynotes. People might remember, just really different. Like, I remember a lot of energy signature and frequency, and I'll remember the technology based on frequency and consciousness and all of that. But somebody else might remember the kind of weapon you had, or like the specs on the handheld technology,
right,
or whatever it was, right? Or
the
what
body
was going
armor.
on with,
Yes.
yeah, and I think men and women tend to recall very different things. Like, women tend to remember more the emotional content, and I think a lot of women's testimonies can be discarded because they don't have, we want to hear about the craft and the bling and what it looked like, and people don't care about what you felt. I mean, it's not so much about that. We want facts. And also, some of it's so horrible, you don't want to bring your audience into that. Like, if I went into a full monologue about the twinning, everybody would be wrecked. Like, it's really not.
Okay.
It's not that savory.
Okay.
And there's a lot of sexual abuse that's very violent and extremely deviant. That's not someplace I need to go in public, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, any kind of ending that we can bring?
Yeah. I wanted to say, and just to reiterate, like the path with the twins and as represented by Dean and I, that they unlock each other's healing, which I think is the beautiful part. Now I can reiterate that pretty clearly. Yeah.
You're like entangled particles that are kind of
We're
resonating.
made to be that way. So it's kind of, I think, the silver lining within the program is that, they could do all of that, but because of all that programming, because of all of the way we were wed together, so grafted together, that when one of us heals, it also, like, if he's not on the path, he's feeling the vibration from me that I am where I am with all of this, right? And our vibration affects very strongly across time and space. So it's also going back into the past to heal the past, right? So there's something really beautiful that goes on now that is influencing what happened and what we call here in 3D, we call the past, right? I think it speaks to the irreplaceability of the human spirit, that there is this kind of redemption that can't be stopped,
Right, of course.
That's really beautiful too.
Yeah. So next time.
And next time we'll go into more of the reptilians. Mars reptilians, there's a lot of story around that. Yeah, and they're underground as well. There's some similarities between the Mantids and the native reptilians, for sure. Yeah, so I'll look forward to joining you guys next time.
All right. Thank you.